I'd just like to invite you to the council meeting on the 16th of April 2024. I would like everybody to stand, and we're going to have a minute of silence for the Bondi victims. Thank you. Thank you. As I said, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the meeting. The event of an emergency, the building may be evacuated. You will be required to vacate the building by the rear entrance and gather at the breezeway between the library and the art gallery buildings. This is the council's designated emergency muster point. Under no circumstances is anyone permitted to re-enter the building until all clear has been given and the area deemed safe by authorised personnel. In the event of an evacuation, a member of council staff will assist any person present with a disability to evacuate the building. 141, Mr CEO, is there any apologies, please?
Yes, Deputy Mayor, we have Councillor Hamling and Councillor Evans as apologies, and we have Councillor McDonnell and Councillor Greenhalgh on screen.
Okay, could I have a move on that there, please?
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten, seconder. Councillor Floyd, all in agreement? Yes, thank you. And passed. 1.2, live streaming and recording. This council meeting is being live streamed and recorded. Speaking at the council meeting, you agreed to be live streamed and recorded. Please ensure that when you speak at this council meeting, that you ensure you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Orange City Council accepts no liabilities or any defamations or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of the council meeting. A recording of this council meeting will be made for administrational purposes. I'd like now to hand over for 1.3 for acknowledgement of country, Councillor McDonnell. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I would like to acknowledge I'm joining you tonight from Randwick, and it sits in the lands of the Bidjigal and Gadigal peoples of the Eora Nation. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we all work and live on around Orange, which is the lands of the Wiradjuri Nation. I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging, and extend that respect to any First Nations people present here, online or in person. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McDonnell. 1.4 for declaration of conflict of interest. Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn.
I have two. 5.2. Last time I have customers who have questions. 5.3.
Sorry, the microphones are not picking up online. Sorry.
Thank you, Councillor. How's that?
Hear me? The light's on.
Yes, that's better. Thank you.
Thank you.
And 5.3 because of Greg's work. He's done work on that site, so I can't vote on that one either. So.
Thank you, Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be declaring an interest in item 5.5, which is the point 2 of the small donations. The applicant there has mentioned in their application that they raise funds for Headspace, and I actually sit as a non-executive director on Marathon Health, which oversees the running of the Headspace. So I'll be declaring a pecuniary interest and leaving the chamber.
Thank you, Councilman. Councillor Peterson, please.
Yes, I just want to declare an interest in 5.3. As I live in the area, I'll exclude myself from deliberations and voting.
Be no more declarations of interest. We'll move on to 1.5, opening prayer by Reverend Tim Goldsmith. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And Goldsmith, I come from the Orange Evangelical Church. We pray regularly for the council and the people of Orange, and so with you. So I invite you to bow your heads as we pray. Mighty and ever-living God, we give you thanks and praise for all your mighty works, for loving and good and gracious. Thank you for creating and sustaining us day by day. Thank you that you made us in your image to exist in community with other people. We at this time recognise the difficulty of meeting together as we see such a tragic loss that happened recently at Bondi, loss of 6 people. Also with the attack on the Syrian Orthodox bishop last night. Lord, where we see dissension and anger, we pray, Lord, that you would sow calm hearts into people's lives. We long for that day where swords will be beaten into ploughshares, where there is no more crying or tears or pain. Meanwhile, Lord, as you call us here as your people with particular gifts and talents, we pray for our councillors. They would seek to act fairly and faithfully, that our meeting tonight might be an opportunity for people to share openly and thoughtfully, would guide the decisions that they might be righteous in your sight, benefit all of the people in this region. It is time to you in the name of the Father, the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you so much, Reverend Tim Goldsmith. We'll move on to the open forum now. So we'll adjourn the meeting, and we have altogether, we have 5 speakers tonight. We'll have 3 on item 5.2, development application, 5 Kajin Crescent. We have, so we would like to invite Andrew McKibbon, please.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. And thank
Before
you,
you start,
councillors.
Mr. McKibbon, I'll just introduce you to the councillors, please. Thank you. Online, we have Councillor Greenhow up the top screen. We have Councillor McDonald on the lower screen. I have to my left here, Councillor Whitten. We have Councillor Mallard. We have Councillor Eason. We have Councillor Duffy to my right. Councillor Floyd and Councillor Kinghorn, and we have Councillor sorry.
Leto.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. And thank you, councillors. Be quite brief tonight because I gave a presentation previously on the 2nd of April, and I have sent a letter round to you late last night. I do make an apology in that 79C has been replaced, but the wording is similar in the Act. But I did partly rely on the Declaration of Planning and Development Assessment Procedures and Protocols version 4, which is an orange document, and maybe that should be updated. Obviously, this has been a contentious issue in the street. What the residents of number 4 and us as residents of number 7 have tried to do is come to you with a compromise, and the compromise arises out of the recommendations that your staff have provided to you as councillors, in that what we would like to do is suggest that what the proponents want, being the light and the airiness in the rear, can be achieved with a gable roof with an apex of 4.5 metres with skylights. And as the recommendations of your staff have indicated, that is within council's ambit to make that decision in order to reduce the impact on the surrounding residents. Now, whilst this might be a very environmentally sensitive house, environmentally sensitivity also concerns shadowing and sunlight, those residents around, and views. So in proposing this compromise, which is, as I said, suggested by your staff, We believe this is abundantly reasonable and would satisfy everyone's requirements. We understand that development has to development should be allowed, but they should be developments which consider the neighbours, not only the environmental characteristics of the house itself, but the environment of those surroundings, so that they get maximum sunlight. Their views are not obstructed. So that's why we have proposed this compromise. Obviously, I've called up what was previously Section 79C and suggested that we haven't really looked also at the social impacts that this may have on reducing backyards in this neighbourhood and setting a precedent. Orange, as I indicated last time, wants to encourage families into the central residential areas of this great city. If this sets a precedent and all our backyards become dominated by buildings, really not family friendly. Whilst the proponent may say that he's an older person and wishes to do this for the purposes of his life, and that's fair, that's reasonable. But unfortunately, when something like this is allowed, it does set a precedent, and it can extend across all these central residential areas of Orange. Start in Cadogan or Cadogan Crescent, and it can extend elsewhere. And we really don't want to have that occur right across our Orange community. So, councillors, I'd ask that you consider this matter carefully. We've offered a compromise. We're up to accepting the compromise. There are issues, we believe, that could lead to this going to the Land and Environment Court, which is in no one's interest. We all understand that. And I would ask that councillors carefully consider the information you've been given. The neighbourhood character and appearance is crucial. Again, I say, we've offered the compromise. I suggest that is the way you should go. Thank you very much, Acting Mayor and councillors.
Mr. Kibbon. I'd now ask Jenny McDonald, please. Thank you, Jenny.
Thank you, Acting Mayor, and thank you, councillors, for the opportunity to speak to you. As you all know, Cadogan is a very quiet cul-de-sac with leafy front and backyards, unobstructed views of the skyline, and of course it has the added advantage of being walking distance to the houses in Cadogan are mostly of a fairly moderate size, and they have a similar number of bedrooms as the proposed development. To allow development of this size and bulk, it'll fundamentally change the character of Cadogan and potentially the surrounding area. The redevelopment of the block will, by council's own admission, set the tone for future redevelopment. We don't want to see development of large double-storey houses, little regard for the needs and amenities of neighbouring properties, very little space between neighbours, and some of those houses are already quite a single story, quite close to each other. The blocks aren't huge. No backyards, no trees, no green spaces. In effect, we really don't want to mirror Western Sydney and some of the new developments there. So on a personal note, we're really very sad by the prospect of this house being built next door. Purchased Cadogan number 4 as our retirement home. Fell in love with it because of its sunny aspect, its abundance of sunlight in the living areas. And now in the council report, it said that it's predicted that in winter we won't get full sun till 11 o'clock. So naturally we're quite upset. We're also concerned that the development will devalue our property, but of course that's not too subjective to substantiate at this point in time, but it's a very real concern that we have. There is also a privacy issue, and I know this has been addressed a lot, but there is still one upper story window that will look directly into our living area, and the addition of the window hoods are not going to mitigate that issue. Look, we're not against redevelopment. As we've said before, my husband said last time, we welcome the redevelopment. We modern, light-filled house being being built that suits the needs of modern living, and nor do we want to be vexatious. But the truth is, the second story of this house will extend way past the rear of our house, about 9 metres, halfway down our backyard, and the impacts on that, on our property from that, are really going to be quite enormous. It's going to change the whole aspect of our property quite significantly. And just finally, I really think as a community, we need to think very, very hard about the way that we want the character of the area to look in the future. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Jenny McDonald. I'd like to ask now Mr. David Knock, please. I understand since the last meeting that the council has had the opportunity to go and visit the property. And I'm sorry that we were not there, in that both myself and my architect were available. However, the council officers advised us not to attend, and we didn't. I understand that you all met with the objectors, discussed with them the process of the way in which the development would take place. I note that the documents before the council are the same documents that were there previous meeting, and that they contain the recommendation of the council officers and planners. I note that in respect of matters raised by Mr. McKibben, that I called for a meeting with the objectors, which was held for Christmas, the purpose of seeing what we could do if there were any particular areas we could reach a compromise. Tonight's the first time I've heard of the particular incident that he's now describing to you, so that we have not had any time really to consider what he said and how he wants to do it. As far as the house is concerned, it will be a modern house. As far as question of overshadowing is concerned, you all know that there are very stringent regulations in respect of overshadowing. We believe that we have complied completely with those. Mr. McKibben also makes a great deal about the area that the house occupies. I think if you all read the documents, you will find that the house then built actually covers less of the site than the house at number 4. Different, we don't have sheds out the back. As far as we're concerned, got within the requirements of the maximum extent to which you can build on a site. In the sense that we have elongated the house and had green areas, if you like, on the eastern side. Very interested to hear about the question of young people and what has to happen in the centre of town. Obviously, Mr. McKibben hasn't been out to North Orange for a while because there's not much room to kick footballs and play around out there. But there are a large number of people, of which I suppose, who seek to move into town, to move into areas we are not required to drive motor vehicles every day, and where we can reach shopping and the amenities of the town by walking and by
being able to live in those close areas. Those who want to have larger areas have to rely upon the car, but we older people, use of a car, something that I like to avoid. The PA has been before the council since August.
Thank you, Mr. Knock. We have now one speaker on item 5.5, small donations, and it's Lewis Bird, the amended projects. Remember our mates, Lewis.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Founder of the amend.
Sorry, guys, I can't hear online.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sorry. Oh, there we go. Good start. Yeah, so the Amend project, we work alongside communities, predominantly in our sporting clubs and schools, and we work to amend together around men's mental illness. This out of a tragedy, unfortunately, where for some years now, and unfortunately we've lost.
Sorry, I'm so sorry to interrupt. Can we swap out a microphone?
Yes, just 1 second, councillor.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Lewis. I'd love to hear what you're saying. I just
No, that's
missed
okay.
every other word.
Is that is that better? Sorry. Yeah, so the organisation come from a local partnership that I have with New South Wales Rugby League in quite dire straits of how do we help our boys. And so I've recently launched at the end of last year on International Men's Day. Already we've partnered with local schools. We've worked with up to 500 youth. We've worked in local organisations, and we really give back in a really practical way that leaves community supported, which come from a conversation from a local organisation manager who said what they found, unfortunately, a young boy who had taken his life, and he said, I know men's mental health is bad, I know suicide's bad, but what do I do about it? How do I have a conversation with these boys? How do I give back? So that has been a really key focus for it. I have an upcoming event here in Orange, which is called Remembering Our Mates. It'll be on Mate Day for May 8. And it come about from being really connected in community and hearing there's still a lot of lingering grief, particularly around suicide and those lost to mental illness. So the event will be held just down in the South Court, and will be a night where people can come along and take a step on that grieving process and remember their mate alongside of our local community services. So far we have 10 local services that will be there on the night partnering with us. We have local food vendors that will be there, a local musician who will be singing on the night. We'll hear from a local organisation, and Groundstone Cafe as well will be opening there to support. I appreciate and can understand in the small donations, it is for not-for-profit organisations, which I wasn't aware of when I first applied. My organisation is currently set up as a for-profit organisation, really basically because I didn't know how to go out and seek some. The requirement is you have to have a secretary and 3 directors on there, and to be honest, I wasn't sure how well the business was going to go when I launched it. Now having an overwhelming response, wanting to put on this event purely to give back to community, there's no cost involved for people attending. There'll be LED candles placed out there to raise the light there. The prices that I've put in the organisation are all from local people, local organisations. We have surrounding people coming. but I wanted to make it a really locally based event that promotes Orange, the amazing services that we have here, and can help families take a step on that grieving process. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bird. That is the end of the open forum. We will resume our meetings again. And I'd just like to extend an apologies to Mr. Miletto. Yeah, I was looking at him, but it just didn't come. So sorry about
All right,
Mr.
you're
Miletto.
first to do it.
We'll go to the Merrill minutes. There is no Merrill minutes, but Mr. CEO and councillors, I'd just like to acknowledge the Food Week. What an amazing event happening on the Friday night, and then the workers. So congratulations to the Food Work Committee, and then Harmony Day. What an amazing day! I've seen some amazing councillors down there being a part of it. It was just a great celebration of who we are, the fabric of what Orange is, and it really does reflect what Australia is. And I'm so proud of all the organisers, Orange City Council, the community services. So congratulations to all. We've gone through that last 2 weeks, so thank you.
And
we'll
if I
move on
could
to
add, Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I could add, the Mayor and I attended the Nepalese New Year function, which happens to be 2081. So we were looking pretty good for a couple of guys that were 50 years older than what we should have been at the ceremony. And it was a great evening. I was surprised to learn that there is some 800 members of the Nepalese community that live in Orange. So. It was a great day. I agree with you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Whitten. It was a beautiful day. Okay, confirmations of the previous meeting, 3.1. May I have a mover on that, please? Councillor Floyd and Councillor David. Allowed speakers, or otherwise we'll move that. Accepted. Okay, move is accepted. Thank you. And all good. Thank you very much. Okay, general reports 5.1, page 13. Can I have someone move? Thank you, Councillor Floyd, Councillor Allard. Any speakers on that?
Just a follow-up question.
Sorry, we have Councillor Donnell. Yes, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to follow up on the question I made about the trees. Page 20 of the papers, the question regarding the trees at the Summer and Hill Street roundabout. Someone was going to look into
Mr.
whether
Chair,
or.
And Mr. Chair, I think the question was: were they vandalised or storm damaged?
And will they be replaced? And if so, when?
Haven't found out yet. They will be replaced. Correct. No answer as yet.
So we don't know what did it.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, we don't know how they were damaged, but we do know they will be replaced.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other speakers on that motion? The motion to a vote, all in favour? And pass. Go on to 5.2, page 31. Application of 5 Coogin Crescent. Have a move on that. Oh, sorry, yes, Councillor Kingward will on the chamber. Conflict of interest. Okay, we got any speakers on this, please? Move the motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Happy to move. Floyd moves.
We have a second, Councillor Stevens. And any speakers, please?
Councillor McDonald.
Councillor McDonald, thank you. Yeah, you've got the floor. Thanks, Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Look, I thank the staff for organising the on-site meeting and the residents for turning up. I also understand that Mr. Knock wanted to have a chance, but I do understand why he was advised not to be there. Look, the site visit hasn't changed the way I was viewing this. I I accept the staff recommendation on it. I realise that the residents have some concerns, but when we look at things like this, we need to have a legal reason that's going to hold up in court to refuse it. And if staff have recommended approval and we have no legal grounds to refuse it, I don't think ratepayers are going to be happy if we make a decision that's going to end us up in court and spend tens of thousands of ratepayer dollars just to lose the case anyway. So for that reason and the fact that staff have recommended it, I'm going to be supporting this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Arnold. Any other speakers? Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and as well as a number of other councillors, I had the opportunity to attend the site and do a site visit, and I thank the neighbours for giving up their time to raise their concerns with me also. Certainly some of the issues which were raised, I can see why the neighbours did have concerns. We did hear about their views being compromised and overshadowing and stuff like that. One of the first things I noticed when I attended the site was that a precedent had already been set with regards to buildings around there, and that was over the back fence. Whilst it didn't impede neighbours on either side of the applicant, certainly I think it must have been number 6, could have been, who over the back fence there. There was a building which, in my estimate, was approximately 2 metres higher than this DA, which comes before us here tonight. Whilst this DA has a 30 millimetre, goes above 30 metres above the recommended height, and that is a recommended guide. It's not a requirement that is an exact requirement, a regulation. I think what I was happy to see was that the applicant actually set back from the area which was obviously 30 mil higher. It was actually set back a fair bit. He's tried to work, in my opinion, where possible, whilst it may not have been to the liking of some of the neighbours, and I do understand that, there was an effort made there. Whilst there was an offer of compromise, at the end of the day, the building does comply with the majority of requirements, and the only thing which I was really concerned about, or the major thing I was concerned about, was that 30 mil above the recommended height. In saying that, the building itself meets all heads of legitimate concern. And for those reasons, I will be supporting the recommendation from council staff. Thank you.
Councillor Miletto. Any other speakers? Councillor Winton.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I thank the speakers for coming here tonight and speaking to council about their concerns in their street, about the DA. DA applications in my 20 years on council have always been very contentious because we always love the area where we live and the house where we live in. And certainly sometimes we have issues with what's happening next door or behind us. Certainly with this particular application, I certainly took into account, especially I'm always very conscious of the fact of overshadowing, especially in Orange because of our winter times. And for the purposes of those who may be watching online, I'm going to ask the Director, if I may, through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, to give his opinion on the overshadowing of this particular application. I'll be supporting the application, but I think it's only fair that the Director explain a little bit about overshadowing and in particular with this application. I too, like Councillor Miletto, whilst I wasn't there with the councillors who visited the site on the day, I did go there and I did notice that there was that that precedent at the rear of those areas where there's a dwelling that is already there, which is potentially higher than this particular dwelling is going to be as well. At the end of the day, when we make decisions on development applications, we have to base them on the merit of the application and guidance from the planning staff as well. And whilst the applicant has rights, so do the people who live in that street, and we need to balance all of those things when we make our decision. Over to you, Mr. Director. If you could give us, with this particular DA application, it does fit within the regulations of our requirements for overshadowing, and that's what's written in the report.
Through you, Mr. Acting Mayor, yes, certainly the recommendation of council staff after assessing the application against our planning controls is for approval. To go specifically to Councillor Witten's question about shadowing. So council's shadowing controls are under section 7.78 of the Development Control Plan. They require 4 hours sunlight to be provided to the north-facing living room windows of a house, of a neighbour, between the hours of 9 and 3 o'clock, so 9 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon. In relation to the west, the house to the west, which was raised tonight, about the concern of shadowing, the application does include shadow diagrams. Staff in our normal assessment have determined the accuracy of those and agree with the accuracy of the plans. Indicate excluding existing vegetation, because when we do an assessment we don't take into account any vegetation that's around there. We did see on site there were large hedges there, so that doesn't get included in our calculations, but there is on both sides, both the western side, the one that was discussed tonight, and also the house on the other side, they are provided with 4 hours of sunlight to their north-facing living room windows. The proposed development does not adversely impact on that. The example being, as reported identified in the report there, our calculations are that by 9:45 in the morning, the shadow's off the north-facing windows of the neighbour to the west, so therefore very much well under the maximum overshadowing permitted. It remains compliant.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Lard, please.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And yeah, I also want to acknowledge and thank all of the people, both the objectors and the applicant, who have made submissions, have engaged in mediation on this, have now attended 2 meetings and spoken as well. And I do appreciate, with particularly a small cul-de-sac like this, it's a very, with, it's a little neighbourhood that you have come to value and treasure, and I can understand that any proposed change is going to raise concerns, and there are probably going to be some parts of it that you're not going to be happy with. But similarly, I have looked at this, and I have in the past where staff have recommended approval, but I believe they have overlooked something or not adequately dealt with something. I've been willing to disagree with that. In this case, after the site inspection, after reviewing everything, I really can't see under our planning controls that there is reason to refuse this development. As we've just heard, I think the overshadowing issue has been addressed. I appreciate that there have been some changes made coming out of the mediation to provide a bit more spacing between the 2 homes. I did look and ask questions about the mention within the staff report about that possibility of reducing the void space and therefore making some reduction to the size of the second story and the overshadowing, but I'm not convinced that imposing a condition to do that would be necessary or would make a significant difference to the outcome.
So yeah, for those reasons, while I understand and respect the concerns that neighbours have about the development, I think I don't agree with all of the issues that have been raised. I believe that diversity of housing stock is actually really important to us, and seeing different types of homes, and that's going to include, as our population grows, we're going to need to see some densification as well. That's not the case. We're seeing a one-for-one replacement here, but we're going to need to grapple with the fact that our homes may not be able to have the amount of backyard that everyone is used to from decades past, but we've got a lot of public green space, and as long as we're making that as accessible as possible to people, then I think we've got ways of addressing that. So yeah, I will support approval of the application. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Mallard. Any other speakers? Councillor Duffy, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm not so much going to speak against the actual DA, but what I am concerned about is a little bit there is that one of the speakers spoke about the sunlight. I'm not going to get it. They live on the western side, or the northwestern side, I should say, as regards to weren't receiving the sun till 11 a.m. in a certain section of their backyard. I have a concern about that, and I have a concern about the ambience of the area, changing the character of the area and changing the appearance of the area. I have a look at the social impact of it, where there's going to be no backyard, but I also look at mainly the bulk and scale, which is above what we actually recommend. And there is a privacy issue that's mentioned on one side of the property, but also in the recommendation it says there's a tree removal out the front. Thought we were in the business of saving trees, but obviously not in this case. It's all right to chop it down, like Lord's place, I suppose. But anyway, getting down that pathway, I was pleased to see the developer make the comment that he raised some issues that he hadn't heard of prior to, well before Christmas, and Christmas was 5 months ago as regards to what actually happened about some issues there. So I do believe there is a little bit of time there to consideration for more chatter to occur between the objectors and the applicant. But I do note that the fact that it's all right to say that the staff have done a wonderful job, and they probably have. And we have a lot of cases that come before here where council have got it wrong. We look at the situation up at Lord's Place where something happened. We look at what happened up at McDonald's in North Orange. Council got that. The councillors got that wrong when they voted to refuse it. It went to court and was solved within a half a day. This is a little bit different to that, and we've also had others go the other way. So just because the staff say something's legal doesn't say it is legal. It's tested in the Land Environment Court. That tells you when it's illegal. We've had plenty of cases come through here, and they get modified before they get through the work and get the approval. So I would tend to think I'm going to vote against it, not because I disagree with it. I'm pleased to hear that the objectors say, look, they know something's going to happen there, and they want it to happen there, but they want it to happen with a bit more consideration.
Duffy, any other speakers? Vote, all in favour, raise your hand. Against?
The ones online?
Yep, and 2 against.
2 against.
7 for, 2 against.
Thank you very much. We'll ask for Councillor Peterson. Are you going to lead the room?
It's a matter arising, Mr.
The
Deputy Mayor.
Kinghorn stays out. Councillor Peterson goes out. Yep, correct.
Just
Move on to 5.3. Oh, sorry, Councillor Whitman.
I was just going to, as a matter arising to Councillor Duffy's comment about the McDonald's on the Northern Distributor, that particular DA was approved by staff and councillors voted against it. And it went to the Land and Environment Court and we lost, Councillor Duffy. We went against the staff's approval.
Today, if you want to challenge me by a code of conduct or whatever you may say.
I don't want a code of conduct here.
I haven't led you down a garden path.
Excuse me, councillors.
Deputy Mayor.
I had the floor, if I do correctly understand, Mr Deputy Mayor, and I was interrupted by Councillor
Thank you,
Duffy.
Councillor Winton. Councillor Duffy. Have you finished, Councillor Winton?
But you're wrong, Councillor Duffy.
Sorry that it was overturned.
Thank you. Moving on now, thank you. 5.3, development application for Icefield
I'll
Road.
move the recommendation for approval, Mr Deputy Mayor.
35, Councillor Mileto, Councillor Winton. Any speakers to the motion? Fine, thank you. We'll go with Councillor Tammy Greenhow first, and then we'll go with Councillor.
No, I'm all good, thank you. I thought we were putting the motion.
All right, yeah. Councillor McDonnell, yeah.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. My question through you is to the director regarding, it mentions decommissioning the existing house. What does that actually involve? And not that I'm in any way insinuating that that's what the applicant intends, but when houses in general are decommissioned, how do we know that we don't end up having like dual occupancy when it's not approved and all those sorts of things? I'm just after a bit more process sort of information.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. There'll be a condition of consent. I'm just flicking through the consent to find it, but it generally houses are decommissioned when you take out either the kitchen or the laundry, and I've just got to check whether it's one or both of these. Often we will require both, so it is just so the building effectively remains, which is the existing house, and because we don't have the occupancies out there, it becomes just like a building that is not a residence by being decommissioned, so it takes the kitchen out of it.
And does it, just obviously again not necessarily regarding this DA, but do people generally opt for that to avoid demolition costs, or why would you decommission a house as opposed to just demolishing it, I suppose?
It's up to the applicant. We've had both ways go. It certainly would be a lot cheaper to have a building retain and just use it for an alternative use, which is associated with the farming uses of the land zoning for that site.
Condition 28, councillors, on page 168. Removal of kitchen and laundry facilities, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, we read that.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr Director. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Councillor Whitten.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm happy to approve this. I think it's fantastic, and it shows, I suppose, from this particular applicant's point of view, and I won't mention the value, but certainly their investment in their home in Orange shows that Orange is very healthy, very prosperous, and that this particular family are looking to spend a lot of money in having their dream home. So, and it meets all of the requirements of council staff. So, congratulations to them, and I'll be voting for the approval.
Thank you, Councillor Winton. Any other speakers on the motion? There being no other speakers, I'll put the motion to a vote. Fine. Duffy. Thank you. Yep, unanimous. Thank you very much. And
out of
approved.
8.
Thank you. Wait for the return of Councillor Peterson, Councillor Kinghorn. While we're doing that, we go to page 211. Back in, we'll go to 5.4, page 211.
Move it, Mr Chairman.
Thank you. Sorry, who was that again? Sorry.
Councillor Duffy.
And that.
Councillor Mallard, Councillor Winton. Is that right? Okay.
Councillor Duffy moved it. If Councillor Mallard's already got a second, that's
Okay. Any speakers on the motion? Thank you, Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you. So I just wanted to comment, page 212, still talking about 15 consecutive rate rises in the last year. And I think we probably need to update that because the last rate rise was in November. And then the last year was May, June and November. So probably need to put in what's actually going on. I realise that the point is still the same, but we should have things accurate.
Noted. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Motion, we'll put the motion to a vote. All in favour? You in favour? Thank you very much. We'll go down to 5.5, small donations, 200.
Could I recommend we do them
29,
separately,
we
Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Yep.
Because I've got to declare an interest in.
Sorry.
Could we do them separately? Because there's 2 points
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
recommendation. Yeah.
Good point. We will. Gordon?
Deputy Mayor, could I just put just quickly ask here, I've got just a matter arising around this that I might be able to put through yourself to the CEO with the consideration for the amount going to the Amend project, because it's a men's mental health issue institution, and I'm also a host of a men's mental health initiative myself. Would that be seen as being some sort of pecuniary interest in that? But it's just occurred to me just then. I just think I better ask.
If in doubt, you're out. I think it's a question for yourself. Do you think it will sway your vote? Then I would leave the room. In this case, it's definitely non-pecuniary.
Yes. I'll leave. I'll leave the room for that one.
Good call, Councillor. Councillor Floyd leaves the
Floyd
room.
has leave the room. Now, could I have a motion that we separate?
Hang on, we've got to do this procedural vote first, Chair.
Mal had seconded it, so we'll
just vote for this and then leave. We'll just do the procedural vote first.
Sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can vote on it.
So all in favour of in seriatim?
For items, yeah. And all agreed. All right.
Now you're out. Yep.
Yep. Now just. Who else declared on this one?
Not on this point, point 2.
You on the second one? Okay, sorry, Mr. Chair. Sorry. They'll both be out of 9.
Okay, we'll go with the first recommendation, the donation of $1,926.30, the amended project contribution to the cost of holding their non-profit organisation. Could I present any speakers on this motion? Online first, Councillor McDonald, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm really happy to support this. I did just have a clarification around it. So I've looked at I've seen. I'm happy to move it.
Move it, McDonald. Seconder.
Happy to second.
Thank you.
So I've seen some promotion of this around, and particularly at the moment, I'm looking at the one on Facebook. I just have a quick question. I know the Amend project is specifically more about men's mental health. Just in terms of the event, can we just get some clarification as to whether it's supporting men, so like only male victims of suicide, or whether it's a general community suicide support? Just a bit of clarity around that, because I can't find anything specific about it in any of the blurbs. But that's not going to mean whether it is or isn't going to change the fact that I'm going to support this. Just from my own feedback, I have heard amazing things from people who have either been to or spoken with Lewis. So I think, although I haven't actually been able to meet you just yet, Lewis, I hope to one day. So I think this is definitely something that we need to be supporting. But yeah, if I could just have a clarification around whether it's only about male victims or whether it's a broader.
Yeah, thank you, Director.
Our understanding is that there's no preclusion from female victims to suicide, that both would be included. If someone chooses to remember either victim, they would be welcome to on the evening.
Thank you. Councillor Greenhow.
Yeah, I'm totally happy to support this event. I think any place we can provide for people to come and openly grieve and be accepted, as you know, with my support group for bereaved parents, there's not a lot of support for this sort of stuff. So I know after the loss of my own son, when we get together to celebrate Harry's birthday, it gives a lot of his mates permission just to grieve without being judged every year. So I totally understand that it doesn't meet the criteria in the fact that it's not like it's a for-profit business. However, I think an exception can be made under the circumstances because the actual event itself is not for profit. So I'm happy to support this 100%.
Thank you, Councillor Winton.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Look, great organisation, and I hear what the two councillors are saying. My only problem is that we're breaching our own policy, right? There's here under policy SD32 programs. Now we've many times things have come to us, and we've had to refuse them based on that fact, and now we're going to make a precedent change. The way that we could change this, the only reason this is breaching our policy is because we're giving cash. Right? Is that correct through you, Mr. CEO? Because we're giving money, right? But if we were to give things in kind...
Mr. Chair, we're breaching the fact... The breach is because we're giving to a
not-for-profit. That's right. That's what I mean.
For-profit.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what I'm saying, that
cash.
the program, the SD32 program 5.1 specifically talks about must be a not-for-profit applicant.
But it's not a question of the cash.
The term must, right?
But I mean, your council. It's a
I
policy
know.
thing.
You remember that next time, Mr. CEO.
You can do
So I'm happy to vote for it as long as it's not. We're not going to be held accountable for it.
Councillor Mallard.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and and thanks to Mr. Bird for coming and speaking this evening. I'm happy to support it. I think, as others have already said, it's really important that we have more initiatives to create these public spaces for people to come together to grieve, to recognise, and also to promote awareness and suicide prevention as well. In terms of the issue about the policy matter that that Councillor Greenhalgh and now Councillor Whitten have mentioned, I do think the explanation that we've had, I mean, we're not being asked by a corporation to provide them with some money for them to do something good. This is an organisation that hasn't been structurally set up to meet the requirements for actually being a recognised not-for-profit, but I'm comfortable with exercising discretion on that basis. If a different type of for-profit corporation was to come to us with their hand out for money, I would then argue that we don't provide the money to them on that basis as well. I think we've got the clarification that the intention is not to make money out of this event or out of this initiative. It's just a structural matter. Thanks.
Councillor Millardo, please.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and I did have some concerns around policy. However, I certainly support anything which supports people suffering from mental health, male or female. The only concerns, I had a couple of other concerns, and I felt that looking at the application, there could have been some savings in here. And there's a couple of things which concerned me. And I believe that the council costs could have been waived. That could have reduced the donation. The welcome to country or acknowledgement of country, $500. $250 for a local speaker. I would think that $500 for a welcome to country, whilst I understand the importance of it, suicide mental health affects a lot of people, Indigenous and non-Indigenous people in society. I'm just wondering whether the applicant made any representation or inquiry with the organisation or organisations who provide a welcome to country to find out whether they were interested in waiving those fees. Same as a local speaker, $250, whether there's an approach made to that person to find out whether they were interested in waiving their fee based on the fact that suicide and mental health is a major problem within our community. I would have liked to have thought that anybody who was part of this type of event may have considered helping out in some way. And the same goes for the barbecues. And whilst the organisation is a for-profit organisation, certainly there would be some incentives or tax deductions in these circumstances, but I don't see any of that here. So that was one of the concerns which I had, but we'll be supporting it, but I would have liked to have seen some representations or some other information with regards to whether or not there was an approach already made to these other organisations to find out whether they could assist without coming to council first. Thank you.
Councillor Beeson.
Thank you, Mr. Acting Mayor. Yeah, look, I support the event as a doctor. Suicide is the leading cause of male death under the age of 40. 2 points I had. The first being that I was unclear where the applicant's contribution of $500 would go, as the total sum of about $1,900 requested is the amount that is budgeted. And the second was to echo the point of Councillor Mileto. A third of the total cost is the cost of the Welcome to Country and speaker. And given the topic of men's mental health, the organisers may have found that there are people willing to volunteer their time and contribute to the cause that way by their time rather than requiring payment.
Any other speakers? I'd like, sorry, Councillor McDonald. Yes, Councillor McDonald. You've got it all.
I just wanted to basically say that I don't think we should ever expect First Nations to do acknowledgement or welcome to country for free. Never ceded the land. I think that's a very inappropriate thing to suggest, but I understand there may have been wiggle room elsewhere, but that is not something that you should ever suggest, in my opinion.
To the director, offer to do something that being a new kid on the block with this. Are we creating something down the track that may bite us if we did approve? I understand that there was a from Mr. Bird when he first mentioned that it was sort of just bringing it together, because it's only black and white. Once it goes to this here, this is a document. The emotion of what we're talking about now is going to go out the door, and then somebody go down the track and say, "So this is you voted on this."
I feel like my CEO is desperate to speak to you, so I'll let you do that.
Yeah, I've got a suggestion. If you were to approve this, I was going to ask the acting director to get from Mr. Bird, who made a verbal explanation of why he's a profit and almost became a not-for-profit, to provide a written explanation which we append to the file, thus heading off the issue of precedent. Because council seemed to be satisfied with his verbal explanation. And when in future we can always refer back, if someone refers to this, we can say, yes, but an explanation was given, and then how does that sound?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Okay.
On that note, I actually heard Mr. Bird speak on the radio the other day, and I was really moved with the way he unpacked his motive in relation of setting this up, even what his outcomes. It really does. You know, I think these programs in Orange are vitally important. We could have a dozen of them. We've got Bush to the Bush. They've come into town, and you've got all these amazing programs, but more and more programs going to allow us to hopefully fill the gaps or catch some of those that may fall through the crack, because as what Mr. Bird spoke about, this program started on, unfortunately, a person. This program started from a person. So I take my hat off to Mr. Bird and thank him for his initiative. So on that note, if there have been no other speakers, I'll put the motion to a vote. All in favour? And thank you. Carried.
Proper councillor?
You do.
We do.
So I'll follow the process and leaving, because I'm declaring a pecuniary interest, because in this item they talk about raising funds Headspace, and I sit as a non-executive director on Marathon Health, who
Councillor Floyd has returned. Councillor Whitten is leaving. Okay, going on to 2, United Social Club. Have a mover of this motion, please. Thanks, Councillor. Seconder, thanks. Speakers, please.
Great. So just to clarify, this club is a group of 20 members, some of whom from Orange, who attends community events. And that's fine, but I'm just wondering what they're going to do with the defibrillator. Is there like a venue where the defibrillator is going to live, or is this something that will just accompany them on their social outings in case it is needed?
Acting Mayor, my understanding is, as you can see from one of the attachments, it's actually a motorcycle club that has changed its name. So it is very much the latter of what you just described, as they are very mobile in their activities.
Councillor Kinghorn.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Similar question to Councillor Peterson. I thought it was just a bit confused because it says the purchase of a defibrillator to add an additional element of health safety awareness, whereas a defibrillator has a very specific purpose of helping to resuscitate people who've had a major cardiovascular event. So I wasn't quite sure how they were going to create awareness. I realise it's they do fundraising and stuff, and I've got no issue with that, but it is confusing. Not very clear about their intention for the defibrillator.
Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I was a little bit confused by it. I was just wondering whether the applicant had made any approach to the New South Wales government in the first instance, because as we know, the government, up until recently, were providing up to $500,000 in grants for eligible sporting clubs and facility owners through the local sport defibrillator grant program for 23-24, up to $3,000. Whilst this may not have fitted within that, it could have been debated. The other question I would have had was whether or not the applicant had made any other inquiries with regards to what other grants were available at this point in time, because my understanding is there are some. So I would have liked to have seen that before the organisation come to council in the first instance. Maybe they did, but I don't see it anywhere in the information here. The fact that there are 20 participants from, I think it's Orange, Sydney and somewhere else, I just can't remember, Bathurst. The concern I had there was there any approach made to any of those other LGAs to contribute to it? Because the 20 people are made up from all those areas, so Orange have been asked to fork the bill, so to speak, for the whole amount. Whilst it's a defibrillator, where this event is going to be held in the South Court, council would have defibrillators on site here which could be lent. So, should a medical episode occur, and even the Orange District Football Association, Mr. President, would have lent them one had they not been able to acquire one for the event. So, sorry, I might be confusing the South Court with the other event, the other donation, so I apologise there. But my argument is still the same, is, there is grant funding available for defibrillators. I'm not quite sure we're coming to council first before we look at those other opportunities, and why we haven't gone to other councils to help put the bill. So, I'm in two minds about this one. Thank you.
Councillor Ballard.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm happy to support this one. I mean, I think expecting a small social club of about 20 people to go looking around and find out what grants are on offer and go pitching to multiple places for $1,500, I think is expecting a lot of effort. We run a donations program. They've seen that there. They've put in a request for a donation. It's one that I'm happy to support. I take Councillor Kinghorn's point about the language a bit clumsy. Again, small club writing a grant application, I don't think it's something they regularly do, probably. So I don't. So I just think I can understand, while I don't know the the ages or demographics of the members of this group, but yeah, I think it could be good for them in terms of travelling around. They're not holding one specific event, to be able to have this as they travel in a group and are able to look at, if a health incident was to happen, they've got something else in addition to whatever other first aid matter that they've already got with them. So I'm happy to support it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Yeah, I'm happy to support it, but I don't want to support it until we find out how much money's been put in by the other LGAs, like Sydney or Bathurst LGA. Those type of things. We're copying the whole lot. The 17 or 20 members could all come from Bathurst. How many come from Orange? Yeah, we don't really know, and I just wonder whether we should probably defer it until we get some answers, like we have done before when something is of where its originality is from.
Is that a motion? You'd like to put that on?
I'm happy to move an amendment.
Move amendment.
Second.
Could I have a seconder for?
I'm happy to second that, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhow. Okay, any speakers on that there that we defer?
Yes, through you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I tend to agree. I mean, I know firsthand the importance of a defibrillator. My concern is very much like Councillor Miletto's. Coming from a sporting club, I know we were able to get a grant. It wasn't just expected that council would pay for it. You know, we have over 400 kids at our club. And my concern, you know, about the group, like I agree with Councillor Mallard's point. You know, we don't know the age, we don't know the demographic, but my concern is, you know, is this a structured club with a constitution? Is it just going to end up in the back of someone's car? You know, that's my concern. So I'm happy to support the deferment for more information.
Okay, any speakers on the amendment? Thank you, Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm going to speak against it. It's $1,500 that can potentially save someone's life. So I'm going to vote against that and vote for the original motion.
Councillor Floyd. The other speakers? Okay, we'll vote on the amendment, please. All in favour of the amended?
4 for the amendment.
5, okay.
Sorry. 1, 2, 3. Oh, sorry. 4, 5, which makes the amendment the motion.
Motion and so we'll put the amended motion.
You should, sorry. Come to the gun, Mr. Chair. You should do the against.
And against?
4.
Now now the amendment becomes the motion, and we'll put that amended motion to a vote, please. All in favour? And Mr.
8-1.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
I counted 8-1. I think Councillor Floyd voted against it. So it's a deferral for more information, sir.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Councillors, that was really good. Okay, moving on to 5.6, Councillor Whitten returns. We'll go to page 245, the inflation and inflatables.
Happy to move it.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Mr. Maletta and Councillor Floyd. Okay, speakers on the motion. Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Look, I understand we're being asked at this point just to provide consent for a DA to go ahead to Cabonne. So I wanted to ask through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, in terms of further stages of the process. Obviously, like I can see this is going to be a really positive attraction that a lot of people will love having at the lake if it does go ahead. There are a lot of competing uses of the lake as well, obviously, from dragon boating to fishing to swimming and everything else. So just wanted to ask, we've got a map with an indicative location, but that's all we've got at this point. Presumably the DA will go to Cabon for assessment and they'll decide what they approve and what conditions they put on it. But what stages in the process might we as a council have an opportunity do we get an opportunity to make a submission on that DA? Will something come, assuming the DA is approved? Does something then come in terms of an agreement with us as the landholder to approve things? So I guess I'm just interested in how do we make sure that we're not creating tensions and making sure it's approved in the right place?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have a crack at this one. Yeah, indeed, the lake is an Orange Council facility in Cabon Council. So if you vote to give landowners consent tonight, you're voting to put that on the DA form. The applicant will then submit a DA to Cabon Council with my signature on it. Now, the DA will need to cover all the matters you listed, definitely the operational difficulties, the dragon boaters, the general public, all the great work Mr. Hodges' team has done, the floating boardwalks, fishermen, all that stuff will need to be covered. The environmental impacts will need to be covered because we do have wildlife out there as well. One council will be the determining authority. They'll need to go to exhibition. I think we would probably view that if we were doing it as quite a public interest sort of thing, so they'll be casting the net widely. They'll cast it to us and we will get to make submission under Councillor Peterson's spirit of his controversial motion. I think it would be prudent that we somehow get it back to the chamber for comment, as Mr. Hodges' team probably makes the submission on your behalf. And Councillor Duffy, hello. Once that's done, that process would be done and it would be determined in the chamber of Cabon Council. Now, I need clarity from Mr. Hodges. If it was approved by Cabon Council, Mr. Hodges would then issue some sort of, or corporate would issue a permit of some sort, which would get some fees in for us, for them to how do I go? What's that, Mr. Warner? Please, to the console.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'd suggest in developing the development application to go to Cabon, the applicant would work with us. So doing that, so we would have direct input at that point as to all the matters that the CEO raised. So as to its location, size, etc., etc. So it wouldn't be just they do it unilaterally and submit it, and we make the first time we see it is when it's submitted. We'd work together through that process.
And Mr. Chair, I think there's been some work together already in choosing the location, Mr. Maunder, is that right?
Thanks for all of that information. On that basis, I'm happy to support us providing the consent.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with supporting going to the landholders around. Concern is, have we had any real interest from private enterprise to run it?
Through you, Mr. Chair, this is coming from private enterprise.
Says it in the paper.
Yep. Okay.
Councillor Floyd.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Just through you to the CEO or the director, is the area up there at Lake Canobolas frequently closed due to algal blooms up there? Do we know? Have we got any records of what the blue-green algal blooms up there? And I say that because I know the same people that have this type of infrastructure down there in Bathurst are quite often afflicted by the algal blooms in Chifley Dam and have to close. So I was just wondering if they would be unfortunately in the same boat with any sort of closures up there at the lake.
Thank you. Through the chair, we have a regular blue-green algae monitoring program. In my time with council, I'm not aware of closing Lake Canobolas for blue-green algal blooms. We've been on the amber alert before, but never a full one in my time anyway.
You have something else earlier than Mr. Greenham time? Sorry, Chair, Mr. Hodges.
You're right. All good. Still on Mr. Floyd at the moment.
Technical issue. We certainly have a protocol which goes through. We do different tests, and we've had tests come back high that cause a retesting, and weather conditions change. So I probably jumped the gun there by leaping up, going, "Oh, it's not quite right." But yes, we've had blue-green algae blooms there, but they passed fairly quickly for that particular storage.
It's not being closed.
No, I think we've had signs out twice to say
in your time.
Yes.
Yeah, no, that is actually what I was thinking as well. So in going on that, I think that this proposal is great, and I'm sure everyone will benefit from it. So I'm 100% behind it.
Yeah, Councillor Miletto.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be supporting it. I think that this is really a win-win for Orange and combined councils, providing we can both agree on what is intended. And what it also does is, I think it's also a boost for our tourism economy. It has many benefits for the region as far as tourism is concerned, but not only tourism, but also for our local residents, children in particular, who we often hear them say that there isn't enough to do here. Whilst we don't have a beach around this area, what we can do is provide a beautiful lake setting with a different type of amenity, but it also adds to a healthy lifestyle, something which we try and encourage in this city. So I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Hello, Councillor Peterson.
Look, I agree with what's already been said, but also just to point out that Lake Canobolas has had a fair amount of investment from council already, so this would just be a value multiplier of what we've already put in there over the past year.
Thank you. Councillor Greenhow. You've got the floor, Councillor Greenhow.
Thank you. I'd just like to echo Councillor Miletto's thoughts. I think this is a fantastic opportunity to further develop Lake Canobolas. I know they have had one of these in the past in Lithgow as well, and you hear of people from as far as Forbes, etc., travelling down to those. So I think it's a great tourism boost for our city if it's done correctly. So I look forward to what comes back before us after the negotiations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Greenhow. There have been no other speakers. I'll put the motion to a vote. Favour? Thank you very much.
Councillors might have an Ironman event out there, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
You never know, you're lucky in a big city. Okay, Mr. CEO.
Closed.
We'll go into closed meeting now. Chief Executive Officer will now advise the Council if any written submissions have been received relating to any items advertised for consideration by a closed meeting of Orange City Council.
Mr. Deputy Mayor, I've got no such submissions. No such submissions, no.
So, in accordance with the Local Government Act 1993, the Local Government General Regulations 2021, in the opinion of the Chief Executive Officer, the following business is of a kind as referred to in Section 10A(2) of the Act and should be dealt with confidential session of the Council meeting closed to press and public. 6.1 tender F4154 sewer main upgrades. 6.2 Minutes of Audit Risk Improvement Committee meeting the 27th of March 2024. 6.3 the submission redaction report 16th of April 2024. Can I have somebody move that we go to close?
Move that way.
Council.
Happy to second.
Thank you. And all in favour? Thank you very much.
Okay.